everyone, Randall Standridge again, and for today's installment on the Garden Consortium, we're actually going to be doing a brief conversation with Walter Cummings, as you can see on your screen. Walter is the owner and former main editor. Kenneth Singleton is doing the editing now, but Walter does a lot of the typesetting, and he's been the editor for the company for 25 plus years. It started it. He is a great editor. He was my first main publisher. Taught me so much about band music and about editing and getting things ready for band ensembles, things to think about when making pieces better for ensembles and things like that. So very happy to have him in here, and I'm going to let him take it first, and he's going to just say a few words about the process of editing, what he looks for, and such things as that. So take it away, Walter.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for listening in. And first thing an editor has to do is choose the music. The way I do my music choices, I would say it's an emotional thing. I also have a committee that helps me choose music, but I see how a piece of music makes me feel. I see if that piece of music tells a story, it pulls me in and makes me feel positive and makes me want to see where it's going, and also I need to feel a range of emotions from it. If a piece of music pulls me in, I'm likely to publish it, especially if it's realistic for younger players. But anyway, so the editing process, there are many layers to that. First, I have to make sure it's going to work for the players at the level it's intended to be played by. So if it's a grade 2, it has to have a certain range for trumpets and various other instruments. The articulation demands have to be realistic. The length of the piece has to be realistic. Also, the instrumentation demands. There's just a lot of things to consider if for the level the piece is being written, if it's a realistic thing. So if that is all happening, then I have to check things like balance in a piece. Does instruments call for at any particular time balance up? And does the melody line speak about the other things that are being written for at the same time? If it's for low voices, do the low voices get drowned out by the upper voices? You have to consider the range as well as the balance when figuring out if things are going to fly. You have to look at percussion usage and make sure the percussion are not being written in an overwhelming way. Other balance issues, the balance between sections of the piece. Make sure one section of the piece is not really long and the other section of the piece is not good. Things like transitions we look at and make sure transition takes you from one key area or from one mood area to another in a way that makes sense, and also takes you on a smooth transition between one thing and another. That's just some of the issues I look at as the editor of a piece in general. I know this could get boring if I go on and on, but that's sort of what an editor looks at in a piece once a piece has been chosen for publication, which is my job. Okay,
Yep.
whatever.
And so for those of you that are familiar with Frogs and the March of the Arachnids, which are also part of the Garden pieces, Walter edited those and gave me some really great advice on those. And, they were, I was pretty happy with them to begin with, but Walter always comes back with things that makes them even better. And, I would be very egotistical and unintelligent not to listen to his advice, because sometimes it is good to get that outside perspective. So one thing we're going to ask Walter about next is his reactions and any suggestions he has for me for the drafts that he's gotten of Bees and Flowers. So take it away again, Walter.
Okay, so both these pieces, Randall did not let me down. Both of them are very unique to Mr. Standridge and don't sound like anything else I know of that has been created before these pieces. So very original works. They both have a bit of an unpredictable quality about them, which I find quite attracting. I don't know where the pieces are going. They're a bit unpredictable, and they take me on a journey that is very interesting, and I'm not let down at all by the predictable nature of the pieces. They're both just great. the sounds for the grade levels. By the way, I'm calling both of these a grade 2. I hope Mr. Standridge agrees with me. He thought maybe they were 1, but I think there are 2 elements in each.
I would say they're that weird. I'd say they're that weird grade area from like 1.5 to 2. They're in that kind of. It's in that weird like middle zone. But I always trust him with what he wants to call them, so we're going to call them grade 2s.
We are going to call them grade 2s. So, and I'm looking at B's. The first thing I want to say is I'm really glad you didn't use the Flight of the Bumblebee motif. Thing to do, but we have a lot of original material mixed in with another song, and I call it "I'm Bringing Home a Baby Bumblebee." Is that the Traveler?
No, I don't believe so. Now, I could be wrong about that because I've never identified those together. I just know it as the Baby Bumblebee song.
Okay.
It would be kind of ironic if it was the Arkansas Traveler because that should be my nickname. But but anyway, so really, y'all know, y'all might have seen a screen flash up here just a second ago. I am pulling up something so I can take notes for what he's about to tell me.
Okay, very good. All right, so we're going to talk about B's first, and just some things I've marked in my score.
All right.
Mr. Standridge likes to use trills, and that's really, I think that's evocative of the sound of bees' wings. So I think it's a brilliant way to paint a musical picture of bees buzzing around. So I like the trills at the beginning, right off the bat. Now I'm wondering, and it's been so long since I've been a band director that I forget how to do a trill on an alto saxophone high D. But for all the alto saxes, I am wondering if a trill on a high D.
Yeah.
Realist that is for a grade 2.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you caught that because when I was looking through that earlier today, I think that got accidentally thrown up the octave. It's supposed to be on the staff.
Okay.
So no, but I'm glad you caught that because I caught that too, and I was like, yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
All right. So another thing I see right off the bat, we need to mark our timpani pitches. We have 3 timpani pitches, which is realistic for grade 2. I'm fine with that. We just need to put what the letter names of those pitches are.
Got it.
Now here's a balance thing I'm thinking about right off the bat. We have a lot of percussion playing. We have heavy percussion, timpani, snare drum, bass drum. And then we have this muted trumpet thing in the third measure that I think with real players may not be heard. So I'm thinking maybe we should save the trumpet usage for later in a piece in measure 3 rather than being muted. It's just a think about because I'm thinking that's going to be covered by everything else that's happening there.
All right.
All right. So another thing about both of the pieces, Bees and Flowers, the pieces are pretty chromatic by nature, and that's one of the things that makes them really attractive. It's not a predictable, just straight up and down the scale. We got lots of half steps and lots of shifts between major and minor, which I really like. But we need to use courtesy accidentals more frequently, like measure 13 in a bass line. I would put a D natural before the D flat, and you have mixing up D naturals and D flats a lot. So I think you need to mark every D natural there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So. Okay, so all right. Moving on to measure 28, where we have our baby bumblebee thing. Now, we're looking at middle school band piece. It's a grade 2. And typically what is a little weaker. Now, I'm a trombone player, so I'm not knocking trombone players out there, guys, so don't take this wrong. But often in middle school bands, low brass are among the weaker sections and low winds. And we have a low brass tune, and we pick up a 28. At the same time, there's a snare drum and bass drum, wood blocks, and fair amount of percussion stuff. Now, trumpets are muted. Here, I like the mutes in the trumpet. That's a really great idea. It's not grossly bad leveling, but I'm thinking we should mark the bass drum and snare drum and mezzo piano at 28, just so the low brass don't have to strain as much. And it depends on the situation. But in many situations that low voice is playing a tune, I would put that down to mezzo piano and heavier percussion at 28.
All right.
Okay. Now, looking ahead to 36, where the baby bumblebee theme is played by the harper woodwinds and trumpets. I'm wondering why the trumpets have a half note. Bum, 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 bum. So why did you not use the quarter notes in the tune like the original tune goes? I'm sure you've got your reasons, but
Honestly, I don't really remember off the top of my head. It's one of those things. I'm sure it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Okay.
So what I will do is I will go back and listen to that and play with it and see if like putting it into two quarter notes might make it better.
I think maybe it will, and or maybe there's some reason, just something for a blurred effect, possibly.
Possibly. But I'll go back and listen and see if I can recapture the thought, and if it doesn't sound good, I'll change it. So.
Right. Okay. Now, then we kind of wind things down after the upper voices have the baby bumblebee theme. We get quieter and quieter, and we go into a totally different section here at measure 47, which I think is a really appealing section. But I'm wondering what we're supposed to be visualizing here in this part of the piece. What are the bees doing?
So what that is
for this quieter thing?
Well, you might have noticed that that's the same theme as the flowers theme.
Yes,
so,
it is.
So what it is, this is where the bee flies onto the flower. And you hear the bees singing the flower. They're buzzing, so they're singing the flower song because they're drunk on pollen.
Okay, very good. I was thinking maybe it was something like this. It seemed like the bees have gotten very lethargic.
To me,
they're drunk on pollen.
To me, there's such a symbiotic relationship between bees and flowers that I wanted, and I'll share with you the videos for a little bit. Like one of the things that I set out, like in one of my earlier videos, was like I wanted the two pieces to be strongly related because there was this relationship between bees and flowers in the real world.
Absolutely. Okay. That I did notice that was the same tune. I should have picked that up. Bees drunk on pollen, of course. Now, I don't know how you're asking for optional horn and trumpet buzzing on the mouthpieces with the flowers tune. So I wonder how accurately the young brass players can play that tune on their mouthpiece.
Yeah, well,
actually, and I'm thinking they probably can.
Yeah,
it's good to give them an option out to play on the instrument with the mute. Yes. And that's another good idea. I love options, so I like the fact you have offered an option there, either buzzing on the mouthpiece, making that bee sound. And I think conductors can experiment with that, and I think they'll have a good time figuring out which way to go with that.
The other thing I did with that to kind of hedge my bets for the ensembles with that was to make sure that there is a woodwind component playing the melody so that they can follow along with that.
Yeah, that's a really smart way to do that too. So I'm picturing what I need to picture: the drunk bees. And then the bees are picking up. You got flying faster here over measure 57. I like the pulse and the mallets and timpani. And then we're back to buzzing and glistening in their trombones, which is a really good way to picture a bee. I like that a lot. And I think from the end it's all just perfect and a super fun ending. Then we got the mouthpieces back going again to the end. And I want to ask you a little bit about the last 5 measures of the piece.
Sure.
And that is where your instruction is make very loud, busy, buzzing sounds with mouthpieces. And you've got these pitches, and this is a transposed pitch, but in trumpet C and F sharp, half notes going back and forth.
Yeah.
But if you add the word random in there someplace, and you don't really want them to go try to play from C to F sharp, the tritone there, I don't think you're asking for that, but you want them to play like random note rhythms and whatnot, and just make a lot of sound on the mouth.
So do you think maybe like a slash notation might be better, like slash across the bars?
Maybe so, or just throw in the words in your sentence random somewhere.
Okay.
Make very random buzzing sounds with mouthpieces.
All right.
I think some people are going to see that and be very literal about that and try to go, just like you got it written.
Yeah.
You want it more random than that, don't you?
Oh, yeah. It just needs to sound like a hive. Like,
okay. Oh, like a beehive. Okay,
Yeah.
right. So I just think you need to throw in the word random there, or maybe put this slashes, like whatever you think is the best way to notate that. But I think some people are going to be not following your correct and exact like you intended it there.
All right.
And that's just something to think about. But this piece reminds me a little bit of arachnids too, in a feel. Sometimes where you've got this folk melody that you're going back to,
Yeah.
and different things with it, and interspersed with the original material. So I think this whole suite is going to be fabulous. But I will tell you that my favorite movement of the suite is flowers, probably. I love frogs. I love the whole thing, but flowers is a profound movement. I think it's a brilliant composition. And I think a lot of people are going to want to play this as a slower piece on a contest program or whatever, but it's wonderfully written. I think it's got a great intensity curve. The melodies are gorgeous. The harmonies are enthralling. I really, really like flowers a lot. There's nothing in here I think does not work balance-wise. It takes you on a wonderful little journey, a passionate journey. You say on measure 60 with passion, and that really is a passionate moment in the piece. It's like the sun is shining on a field of flowers, and the flowers are incredibly happy because their destiny is to open up and receive that sun and make their energy and pick up the energy of the sun and make whatever flowers make their pollen or whatever. And it's, I don't know, the whole movement, it feels passionate to me. The mallet writing is great. I think a mallet player is going to love doing this. It reminds me a little bit of a lullaby, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, the lyricism with active percussion, so.
Right. There is one note I think is outside of grade 2 range, and that is where you've got the split tuba octave at the end. I think grade 2 tuba players generally aren't going to be able to play a low F.
Yeah.
It'll be a wonderful double octave in tubas, but you might want to say optional or AVB optional.
Gotcha.
And lower octave optional.
Yeah. I guess one thing I could do is I could just make the lower note, like that smaller note head, and list it as optional, that type thing.
But the whole piece feels like a day in the life of flowers, and they're having a beautiful day out there in the sun. So the piece feels great to me. I think it's going to get an awful lot of place as standalone movement, mixed in with other pieces. But it's such a wonderfully original piece, and it's just gorgeous. And I think it's totally enthralling. I love this movement. Well, the first time, like, oh my goodness, what a piece.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you.
Too much else to add on that, Mr. Standridge. So congratulations on that.
So
piece of band music.
Yeah. So guys, my next step will be to take the comments Walter, especially what he made about bees in terms of making things work better, and I'll go through that and tweak things and just keep improving the piece towards getting it ready for you to play. So Walter, thank you for joining us, and guys, again, just wanting to introduce y'all to more people in the band world, and also jobs. I mean, like, some people are composers, some people are editors, and some people are both. And incidentally, Walter happens to also be a composer. I love a lot of his writing, but the piece I would tell you to, if you could only check out one of Walter Cummings' pieces, for me, that piece is always A Quiet Rain. And you should just check it out. It's absolutely stunning. It was the thing that attracted me to Grand Mesa music.
Oh, well, thank you.
No problem. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us, Walter. Thank you out there for joining us. And as always, peace, love, and music.
All right. Thanks, Randall. Bye.